We're all owned by the syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 9th episode of The Sin Syndicate, the only podcast with access to the sorority house bondage initiation and who always carries enough tokens for the full peep show. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And today we're once again joined by the unofficial third member of the syndicate, Andy Milligan aficionado, Mr. Alex DeSanto, who has agreed to join us for a discussion of sexploitation auteur Lee Frost's underseen 1966 docu-roughy Love is a Four-Letter Word. But before we peer through the blinds into that one, let's talk corrections and discoveries. Alex, I think you've got something for us on Maurice Levy's She-Mob, some alternate titling.
Yes, I have a very quick correction. Thanks to, despite the fact that normally, unless it was something he was releasing, Alsac never really had that much ink in the trades, but fortunately, because She-Mob was an official release through him, there were a couple pieces in the old trades. One of them commenting on the fact that She-Mob's original, don't know if it was the working title as they were shooting it, but the title on the script during the conceptual phase, Diana's script was called simply Butch and Dyke.
Yep, that fits. But I can see why they changed it. I mean, it's a little strong.
Yeah, I don't think newspapers would have had a really fun time with those two words at all. There would have been a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
Also, the dirty old men, what's a dyke to them, realistically, if they're not really consuming a lot of like lesbian pulps and things like that. I don't exactly know if that would land as much than the connotation that there's like a mob of vicious women.
Right.
That's a lot more appealing than what sounds like you're going to get like really butch lesbians, like My Sister's Business or something like that, part 2.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now I'm thinking, like, was there any other titles around that time that, like, movies that used Butch or Dyke in their title? Can you think of any, Casey? No, I can't either. He's shaking his head. Yeah.
No.
Interesting.
just in like maybe some, just in some campaigns for maybe stuff like Chained Girls, but otherwise, no, not really. That wasn't really used that much, except for in movies when, or the paperbacks when you had to bring up some of those old connotations. One of my favorite as well is the latent lesbian, too.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, thanks for that find. Yeah, you had mentioned that to us last week, and so that was in box office, you said?
Yeah, that was in box office. That was the only trade where Alsac occasionally pops up. That's also where the advertisement I sent you for She-Mob, it's now booking, came from as well, too.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that's interesting. I can definitely see why they changed it. She-Mob is better, I think. It hits the right notes for that kind of film. Well, thanks again. Let me, before we dig into our film for today, I wanted to kind of live vicariously through you two, because you're going to be going to the Tribeca Film Festival happening next week. If you guys haven't heard, listeners, there is going to be a sort of triple screening. Severin is partnering with Tribeca. They're going to be screening the new Andy Milligan documentary, which features Alex. And they're also going to be doing a double feature of Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me and The Degenerates, which were recently discovered, and which we went into pretty extensively in our previous episode with Alex, episode 4. So if you want to get a little taste of what those films are all about, go back and listen to that before you either show up at Tribeca, or it sounds like these are going to get a disc release sometime later this year, which I'm excited about because I will not be there. But you guys are going to be there. So tell me, what are you guys excited about? What's your plans?
Well, I'm going on Wednesday, June 11th, and that's the documentary. And the restoration premieres are there one night only. It's Friday the 13th. So I will be going to both of those. I know there's a lot of different people that are going. I don't think they're sold out because really they're incredibly niche. So I think if anyone's actually going to go, I think they're actually going to be Milligan people or sexploitation people or horror people. I don't see the typical Tribeca crowd going to these. So yeah, I'll be there if anyone wants to say hi.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, I'm going to be around on the 12th for that documentary's screening. Might be Q&A afterwards, not too sure yet. That's in the air. And then also, yes, the 13th as well. The very, very exciting triple feature. Also trying to possibly pay a visit to Phelps Place. Don't know if there's going to be time because there's also a lot of people. There's a lot of folks to see, like Casey. There's a lot of iconic people who are gonna be there and I'm only there for 2 days. There's a lot of folks to say hi to.
I took the day off on that Friday, just because there are people who are coming from out of town like you. So I am available for lunch or a meetup, of the minds to discuss stuff. Yeah, so we'll talk.
Okay, perfect.
I took that day off specifically because I typically have every other Friday off in the summer. So my job at this time, I was like, well, this is going to be a big deal because there's so many potentials for meetings of the minds, I think, and lots to talk about, lots to go over, and that I think is better than just us messaging back and forth like we have done traditionally. And last time I saw you was super duper brief because it was a screening that I was doing a Q&A for, so I was doing talent management. I didn't have time to really talk. So
yeah, you were very busy. Yeah, you were very busy for that. That was a very hectic time.
I was trying to keep certain people away from certain people for a long time. I think I might have failed.
My God. I wasn't. We'll talk later. Was not aware of that.
Yeah, we'll talk later.
I was too starstruck and being like, Dad, maybe you don't want to come and see these movies because if you might remember, my father was there with me too.
I do
because I was underage. So he did have to come and see Seeds and
I forget how young you are. You're like Joe Rubin. Joe Rubin at Vinegar Syndrome started doing all this when he was 16, 17 years old. When I first started talking to him on MySpace. And
that's when he first started talking to me. Yeah,
he was a child, and I was just like, "Why have you seen all this porn?" At 16, 17 years old, and now he runs, arguably the most important, restoration boutique label out there.
Yeah, it was very weird.
I forgot how young you are. Makes you feel super old. I'm turning 42 this year.
That's why I was so nervous to say that you were my initial guide to this world when I was 14. I was like, shit. I was like, God damn it.
You
were my full initial guide. The DVD drive-in reviews, and also your essay that you wrote about the fragility of lost exploitation cinema that you wrote while in school. That's publicly available. I read that.
Oh, is it? Oh, that good. Okay. Yes. I put a lot into that. That was when I went to Frank Henlotter's apartment, interviewed him. I interviewed Mike over the phone.
I read that too when I was around. I read that too when I was around 14 or 15, and I was like, oh my God. This is serious stuff. These films are still rotting to this day. Oh my goodness. This is like a national emergency. This Casey Scott's guy
published that.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll put it in the show notes.
I'm very it's a great I'll send you the link. It's on my old blog spot that I don't maintain anymore. I forgot that was online actually. I posted a lot of stuff on there. But my DVD drive and stuff, it means a lot when you say that and other people say that. I will say personally, I'm glad all of that stuff is offline now because there are so many errors that I have since discovered are false, and there's all sorts of stuff. So I'm just like, great, now I can correct these on Letterboxd and do basically I use the Wayback Machine, go back and maybe cut and paste a few things where I'm just like, well, I don't feel like writing it all fresh, but
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's maybe why I
I have
started
been doing
so
it a long
well,
time.
because you had some great recommendations. So like I was
Thank
just watching
you.
all the good stuff like right off the bat, like Lee
Thank
Frost,
you.
then Doris
Well, yeah.
Wishman, then let's try and knock off a bunch of Michael Finleys, despite the fact that Casey's review says maybe don't do that. Guys, don't
Oh,
watch
which
more
one did
Michael
I say
Finley
that
films in a
about?
row if you haven't.
Oh,
There was something about how they get
I don't remember
14-year-old
that.
me. If Michael, 14-year-old me saying down to 4 Michael Finley films was a bit much. I did not realize that until afterwards.
He's
You're
not a
changed.
director
You're
that you can
changed for
marathon comfortably and healthily. I don't think. I think you have to take a
no.
break.
No, yeah, I watched 4 in a row, and then like for the rest of the week, I was just not
Damn.
the most right in the head afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that. I think
Yeah,
Sarno, you can do that. I think Wishman is iffy.
and then
Because you
also
kind
if
of
you go
like
with the
what?
Flesh
Because then
trilogy,
after
they
Wishman for
they
four
build
times, you're like,
up.
what are regular movies like anymore? I don't even know. What does editing look like?
And
What?
also,
What?
at least with the Finley films that I watched, because I did Flesh Trilogy and then Ultimate Degenerate, so they keep on going up in depravity. Like it's
Yes.
almost like, okay, what? Okay, the next film can't be any worse than what I just saw.
Oh
And then like,
no,
oh
they get
crap,
so
they're
much
pulling out the
worse.
corn. They're pulling out ears of corn. Shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Crap. Oh no. Oh god. What's
it's
he
very
gonna do? What can Michael do next? Have an adult baby masturbate to a candle? Oh.
right.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh.
exactly.
Oh no. Oh
And then
my.
Manasadika is just like, well, I have color. I don't need to be gross anymore.
I still can't believe Stan Borden didn't retitle that film, despite the fact that he hated that title. What am I going to
Well,
do
yeah,
with
he
a
hated
film
the
called
title.
Manasadika? But he did not retitle it.
Well, it was art.
Stan, you're the distributor. Why you could have retitled it? Like what in the Bob? Like again, what in the Bob Cressy was that like lugubrious thick word? Because
I know.
Bob loves some of his like big dense. French sounding things, prohibitissimo, not erotic.
Yeah.
Right. Well, even like
that sense of
hentai.
worldliness.
Hentai is, when he did that Japanese import, hentai is it's Japanese, so it's kind of the fact that he didn't give that a sleazier title, but I think that was kind of a highbrow attempt to be more highbrow for him.
Which is really funny because hentai is like a really brutal movie. It's one of the few that is that. Yeah, thankfully there's only pretty much out of the features so far, unless someone else's is in on something. There's only around 2 Olympic films that are still officially lost.
It's like Love
The tragic
Robot
thing
still
with
lost.
Love Robots has been screened. It screened in
Oh.
Portland back in 20. The 2 films that so far have not seemingly showed up at all are You and The Secret
Oh, yeah.
Society. Notwithstanding some of the
New
short
York
films.
one, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, with the better New York one too, because it's about the sex cult, and it's got the whole scene with like the snake and things like that. The Secret Society looks really cool, and
Yeah.
things. There's this woman, all these like bondage things getting paddled, and stuff.
And I've always wondered if the Babette was sort of meant to be a sequel to that because it's
I think so, because it's Return of the Secret Society. I
Yeah.
think it is supposed to be like an unofficial sequel.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah,
it came out 3 years
Society
later.
It's definitely, it seems like it's kind of the same thing with the Sexploiters in that it's kind of vignette-y. It goes through a bunch of things. The way Secret
I love the
Society works
Sexploiters. Yeah.
is the secret. Actually, wait, the press book's right here. I'll read it out to you. The Secret Society is very much an underground organization that like spreads all across the world and things like that. So they're always up to like nefarious deeds, pretty much culminating in like one giant like ghastly orgy. Here it is. This film is a documental study of an underground sex organization in New York, known only as the Secret Society. There may well be sin in the suburbs, but what goes on in the big city after dark is something your customers will most certainly enjoy. The society flipped through its catalog of perversions and did this and that for its members. The society's activities range from the production of distribution of out-and-out stag movies to the scheduling of abortions. So they do everything in this movie. Unfortunately. So it's unfortunately still lost. And the other one that's missing, yes, is You, the first-person motion picture. Inspired by that noir flick, Lady in the Lake, pretty much that concept, but ripped off the first-person camera idea. Which, again, that sucks that that's missing, because I would kill to see how that was executed.
Yeah, that sounds wild.
Especially because that wasn't Frost too. So it wasn't Frost's usual version of first person. That was Edgar. That was Ron Garcia.
So Ronald Victor Garcia, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That was Ron Garcia's first film
before he did like Toy Box, which was amazing, and yeah.
And well, then he did Pleasure Machines for Cresse too, as well. Right. According to Cresse, Ron and Ed were the ones that he went to if Lee wasn't interested in doing later on when Lee was getting a bit big for his britches. You was something I think he did not want to do, so Bob went over to Ron and Ed for some of these little ones. For some of these little ones when Lee was seemingly getting a bit tired.
A million blackbirds gone mad in a red neon sky. The man steps off a curb 1,000 feet, screaming, nothing to fear. The woman, unwed, weeps in her vacuum bed, while he chokes on sterile beer. This day the world was a roaring silence of noises, and the only sound was a scream, and the man who screamed was I. The university, classes, day to day, and through it all, Sheila.
Yeah, so, highbrow Bob Cresse, this is kind of like his, Love is a Four-Letter Word was kind of his attempt. He always called it like an art film. I don't really see it as an art film.
Harvey or horror.
No, yeah, that is complete Cresse hyperbole.
It's not Agony of Love.
It's not.
Like,
it's not Agony of Love. Yeah. It's not.
Cresse used to be shot. Well, he was shot, but yeah.
Even if he was not as aware. I'm brushing over that one. Like that did not happen. Because I will Lee. I have this Wildest Films interview with Lee where he also does a factual error saying we have done more with foreign product than anyone I know of.
Yeah.
Which is true in the sense that out of the LA people,
West Coast for sure,
handling the most foreign product. But I don't think Lee was saying that, not realizing that. Metzger and Michigan were things exactly, and Joe Brenner, and so also like Bob, you might think this is the first art film, but I mean, Take Me Naked counts in my opinion as an art sex film.
Yeah,
pretty. Well, much.
I think because this was, this was shot before. And that's the thing. It's like it took 2 years for this thing to come out because I don't think they knew how to market it. They had to wait until other similar titles came out, and then they were like, "Okay, I guess this is the first art film." But yeah, you have stuff like Take Me Naked and Agony of Love.
Well, he was also incorrect about other things. Like what my favorite thing. This is my favorite part about it's in not only in Hotspur, but he also did this in the Love Robots press book. He has a list. Olympic International Films, a company that has always brought you firsts. The first nudie horror film, House on Bear Mountain. The first nudie documentaries, Mondo Freudo, Mondo Bizarro. The first roughie, Festival Girls. And now the first ever Aeroduction ever brought into this country. And for people who don't know, their pink films were briefly termed Aeroductions back in the 60s. If anyone's wondering what that means, they mean pink films, which is also not correct because Radley Metzger already had a pink film out in the market. So that's not even correct. And also,
wait, what year is Love Robots?
Love Robots came out just before Four Letter Word in 67. So also,
and then Madam O was 67.
Shelf. Yeah, Four Letter Word could have also sat on the shelf for a bit while Cresse was dealing with other product too. Because that happens sometimes, as well. Like Love Robots came out, and then Love is a Four-Letter Word. He was pretty much constantly doing a rapid succession.
But Novak put out The Bite, and didn't The Bite come out in 65?
That's also from Bob.
That's a Japanese movie. Oh, that was Bob. Yeah, so they couldn't even get their first correct. Yeah, so like The Bite was I think one of the earliest, wasn't it?
I'd have to go back and look at the newspapers. I thought Love Robots was the first. Love Robots was the one that he made a big Love Robots was the one where he made a big stink of like, you have been reading in the news about these Japanese Aeroductions. You've read about it in Time. They've said that the camera angles will make Hugh Hefner blush. Well, now after 2 years, Olympic has finally fought through all the customs battles to bring you love robots for the first time in America. You get to see blah, 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 blah. And because of all the high legal costs, we had to put forth in order to present this motion picture to you, special admission and prices are going to be in effect.
That's funny.
What a great
road show.
What a
That's
great
amazing.
con. That was at the Pussycats. Yeah, every Pussycat ad for the Love Robots had special prices in effect because of the legal costs. No, Bite came after Love Robots. Bite came out. I'm looking at the ads right now. It came out in '68. Love Robots was '67.
So it took 3 years for the Bite to come out. Okay.
Yeah. Great film.
I also
highly recommend it.
I wonder if Cresse kind of held off on love as a 4-letter word because of the 2 Mondo movies as well. Because I feel like this fits in pretty nicely with those 2 Mondo movies. There's elements of Mondo in this. So I wonder if he was like, oh, maybe I'm flooding the market with Mondo's type films. Maybe I'll hold off on this one.
Because, they also were getting a bit... the Mondo films were also getting a bit tired. Like the last one of theirs, The Forbidden, which is like the most uninspired of all of them and has the most recycled footage as well. If anyone is curious about one of their films that's still unavailable, Night Women, there's quite a bit of Night Women footage in The Forbidden with a lot of the strip acts and some of the backstage footage. 'Cause unfortunately, despite the fact that a lot of the Olympic catalog exists, quite a few of it is still just sitting in archives in various places. Night Women does exist. Hentai does exist. Love Robots does exist. They're just... no one's exactly putting in the work just yet to exactly tackle them. Pretty much. I can only imagine the Wright's nightmare with hentai. It's over in Japan. You'd have to contact the Nihon Cinema people or something like that to find that.
I mean, if there's any time to do it, I feel like it's now. I mean, pink films are having another resurgence. I mean, lots of boutique labels are doing pink films.
And honestly, some of them are really good. If you want some like nasty roughies, if you want stuff that's like of the intensity of some of Lee Frost's films, like The Animal and things like that, oh my god, The Bite, which also Cresse must have loved because The Bite has a big two-way mirror plot point in it. Very good film, highly recommend it. I think John Alderman and Virginia Gordon, it sounds like they lend their voices for that dub too, which is also really fun. Hentai looks really good. Wildest Films did a really lavish spread on it, so there's a lot of stills around, and it's really brutal stuff. Like, the pink films, besides Lee Frost, are like the #1 sex films that feel like anti-sex sex films, because they're just so grim, and they're so dark, and they can just be so utterly unrelenting. If anyone wants to watch, if anyone is out of American like roughies and wants more nastiness, start watching some of the '60s pink films. They're so good.
Yeah. I think that it is a bridge for sure. If you're into sexploitation, I think pink films is the next place to go if you run out. But Casey, this is your first time watch, right? Of Love is a 4-letter word. Did I understand that? What did you think?
I hated it.
Yeah.
Real talk. I hated it. Yeah,
that's why you got this look, look on your face, like I don't want to be here.
No, it's the worst movie we've done since the Sin Syndicate. It's I can see why it sat on a shelf for 2 years. It's technically well made. There's no story. They pad the runtime with dime store loops. It's incredibly. It really hates its audience. Yeah, it feels cobbled together from like. It feels unfinished, to tell you the truth. Like it feels like they didn't even finish shooting it. Yeah, I really didn't care for it. I gave it like
the whole plot line with his
on Letterboxd.
Yeah, with his girlfriend, I feels the most unfinished for sure.
Yeah,
but
I just
I like the
also,
for my meatloaf.
The fact that there were no like. There weren't any, like, I also am this way, too. Typically, it's like, if there's not going to be any superstars of the genre in it, then at least give me some, like, unsung gems. And there really weren't any of those in that either. I
so it's funny you say that.
Lucky Wynn was great, but she's not in it enough.
Oh, yes.
And Diane Michaels is fine. I preferred her in Help Wanted Female. If they're both in Help Wanted Female, which is so much better. Like, I wish we were talking about that, honestly.
Well, what about Harvey Shain? I thought you were kind of a Harvey Shain guy.
Oh, I'm a huge Harvey Shain. I have a huge crush on Harvey Shain. He's a very good actor. He's one of the only guys in these movies that actually is attractive and actually will do nudity, which is rare. It's good to see him in it, but it's just not like he's done so much better. All the Steve Apostolov stuff he does is so much more interesting to me than this.
Which is those films, those early Steven Apostolov films, kind of play really well against this. Actually, if you haven't seen like College Girls and what's the other one I just watched? I'm totally blanking on.
Oh, Office Lovin', maybe?
Office Lovin', yes, sorry.
Or like College Confidential, all those things, Motel Confidential.
He kind of plays the same character in a way. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
He's like a handsome young college kid. And everybody talks about how handsome he is in every film.
Exactly. That was the great thing. Hearing Bob Cressy say that at the end of the movie, where he's like, "If I look like this guy, I'd be out there." Yeah, it's like, exactly. Yeah. I don't know why this guy is just like peeping on women, not masturbating for some reason. I don't know if he's. I don't know what his problem is because. Yeah, I guess, because, it's just him looking at women, watching dime store loops, which pad the runtime to an insane degree. The loops are like the stock footage in Sin Syndicate. It's like this would not be a feature if you took out those loops.
Yeah, I like the loops little segments.
Yeah, see,
vignettes.
Yeah, I really like them. I like this in the sense that I like it in the sense that, okay, to me, this is a great example of how well Frost was at making films, even if he's not firing on all cylinders. Because this is not remotely Frost at its best, nor is it the type of sexploitation I would recommend to someone without an inherent interest. But compared to all the other films of its ilk, which is pretty much consists of the device being a lonely man is wandering around and staring in at things as an excuse to show sex. It is the most, in my opinion, the most accomplished of those types of movies. When you hold it up to something that it might be a little bit more interesting in terms of like kookiness, like All Women Are Bad. Lee actually goes the extra mile. Lee goes the extra mile in terms of his visuals, in terms of the sound mixing, in terms of like what pretty much feels like a film that was shot for $2,000, in terms of quality compared to other films of that same caliber, MOS movies shot for like that much. It is leagues above those kinds of films. Like he really could have easily gotten even more lazy with even just the peep booth. He could have just spliced in whatever the actual footage is, but he actually goes for the full really cool POV flicker effect of actually like watching the peeps. He does put a bit more effort in. When you think about it, he really could have. He did not have to go the extra mile in something like that. There's a double exposure like fantasy part. He did not need to go that extra mile. It would have been completely fine without him. But because it's Lee Frost, it still has something to take from it, even if it's not good Lee Frost. Really, right. It's kind of the same way that I feel about his 3-day wonders, like the ones he shot for Arminatamian. His weekend wonder shot in Short Ends was also, he didn't even edit those. He just cut out the camera stops, then got some musicians in, and then played the music and said, improvise something. For nothing movies, for nothing like 5K films, compared to other 5K films of their ilk, they're some of the best if you ask me.
Yeah, they're very entertaining.
They're not good. They're not good. Like Zero and Scream has underwater camera footage.
Exactly, it's great. That's really good.
So it's like, again, I don't think they're not Lee Frost on firing on all cylinders, and that's also why I think it's difficult to have a fandom with Lee Frost sometimes, because he's not working. You know, he's not always on. But again, it just goes to show, despite the fact, it just goes to show how utterly talented he was in this field, even when he wasn't doing things like The Animal or Hot Stuff.
Sure.
That's what I think is interesting about Love as a Four-Letter Word, is what Lee is still managing to do, despite the fact that it is quite uninspired realistically.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Have you guys
technically,
seen-
yes, that's great, but it's not Strange Compulsion.
Hey, I was
which
just
is
going to say, have
better
you seen
than this
Strange
in
Compulsion?
almost-
'Cause
it's better than this in almost every regard, and it's the same story.
Oh yeah, but that's a full plot. That's a movie with actual plot and stuff. I'm talking about movies where it's just an excuse to show you sex. I'm not talking about Strange Compulsion. I'm literally just talking. Yeah. I'm comparing this to like the nudies where the man is just wandering around putting on glasses and it's just women bouncing.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like
that's what I'm comparing this to.
And that's
what I'm comparing this to.
This is not a nudie cutie. It's like a Ruffy light sort of, because it really is about
kind of.
It is very much like it's definitely not a nudie cutie. It's not like a Mr. Peter's Pets or something like that.
It's a something for everyone piece of product. It's a good piece of something for everyone product.
This film?
Yeah, it did not. Do you think any of the real men would have walked out of this disappointed?
Absolutely.
I don't think so. They saw tits. They saw some beatings. They saw some lesbianism. What do you mean?
Listen, I think distributors and producers of that time underestimated their audiences in certain situations. I think they thought they could give them anything and that they would be satisfied. Not the case. You know,
this is better than a Michigan import or something like that. I don't know. It's better than some of the other imports they did.
Well, Michigan imports are tough to evaluate because they're not really made as sex films. They're spiced up to be sex films. They're not made as sex films. Or something like Festival Girls, same thing. It's like that. It's not a sex film.
Yeah, that is, and that's absolutely not. No matter what anyone says, that is not the first Ruffy. There is nothing remotely
I think that's insane
about that movie. The ruffiest part is someone is chased around a bed. That's it. That's it. No. Someone's chased around a bed at one point, and that's all it was.
Isn't Sinister Urge technically the first Ruffy before Scum of the Earth? I feel like Sinister Urge is much sleazier than like you have a guy raping a woman on the riverside, and doesn't he kill her afterwards too? With like a switchblade.
Yeah. That probably is. Violated has,
like
I would say Violated is close to being a Ruffy, and then Sinister Urge goes full Ruffy.
Violated the 55
Violated was
movie?
pretty much, that's like a bridge film, if you ask me.
It's like, I consider that a film.
It's not a Ruffy, it's a bridge film, if you ask me. Yeah. I consider it a bridge flick between film noir and then what we would eventually get with Ruffies.
That's true. Ruffies are very film noir coded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's also probably why it did really well because there wasn't really anything else like it on the marketplace at the time that did a lot of money very early on. And then I think Sinister Urge would be about it.
Yeah, I don't know. There are definitely things I like about this one. It's just not,
to me.
It felt longer than an hour, and that's always something that is just like, if this is an hour, this should fly. This should have nice spacing. And this was not well paced. Yeah. Like Wild and the Naked, 62 minutes. There's so much in Wild and the Naked. Like, you can pack an hour with tons of great shit, and this does not do that, unfortunately for me.
On rewatch, the Tijuana scene didn't really do it for me. I think it goes on way too long.
Yeah,
the voiceover on it is. Look, I'm not like offended by like the stupid Spanish girl voice, but it's just annoying.
Mm-hmm. But I thought I recognized the girl with the bouffant. I've seen her somewhere, and I can't place her.
Hello. Come in. Just sit down here. My name is Mary, and this is my cousin Lupita. We used to live together on a farm in the hills, and since there were no men around, we became very, very friendly. First, I am going to do a little dance for you, and then I will show you just how friendly we have become.
Yeah.
That did feel like this film is really great at feeling hopeless and empty. That's the one thing I'll give it, is how utterly like despairing this movie feels. So
Except for the party scene.
The party
scene is great.
Which is the absolute best.
Yeah,
like I like the Tijuana scene until it does get too long, but it does feel really cold and distant. It does have a really good effect. Also with
maybe that's why.
Oh no, like it's
just feels dirty.
I feel
it
like
feels dirty for sure.
Yeah, it feels super seedy It goes on too long, but it's really seedy. Like, these women are just resigned to their fate in this room,
right?
Existing for just for these men.
What?
They seem like,
and
oh
they're
my God.
related.
Possibly, yeah.
They're like cousins, I think.
So yeah, I think she mentions that.
Yeah,
but that is kind of but that is kind of a through line in a lot of the Cressy Frost stuff, is the cynicism and contempt for their audience. And sometimes that's interesting, because sometimes it is kind of like, well, sometimes it's done in a very interesting way, and that carried over into adult films, with films like The Debauchers, where it's kind of like, yeah, this industry is disgusting and horrible, and you're contributing to like sex trafficking and shit by being viewers of it. But Cressy and Frost, I think that they enjoyed the hatred of their audience. I think they had fun doing that. Yeah, it's done so much better in other stuff for me.
To me, it always seems like Cressy liked the business. Lee always seemed like he had a bit of contempt for the audience that these were being made for.
Yeah,
I've heard anecdotally that Lee occasionally seemed like he acted like he could be above this whole thing. Back then, aloof to the whole thing. To me, Lee seems to have a sense of contempt for the audience that he's making these films for. And is kind of really driving that home. Next to Milligan, his are the number one films that I call anti-sex films.
Yeah,
because they're so against the act. Right. Or if you're trying to pursue it, like, just it's gonna be the most brutal, sleazy way about it. You're gonna have to threaten to kidnap and murder a child if you want to screw this woman.
Right.
Like, there's nothing nice about it. It's really brutal.
Right.
All throughout. And I see that coming more through Frost, and more of Frost's, what seems like more Frost vehicles over Cressy vehicles. Like, even Love Camp 7 doesn't feel as dark as Hotspur or The Animal.
Yeah,
which is a weird thing to say.
I know. Well, I noted that on my rewatch of it. I was like, oh, actually, this feels like very tongue in cheek, and that is something that I noted in my rewatch of that when I reviewed it. I was kind of like, Cressy and Friedman and all these people working in this industry, they fought in World War II. Their audience were people who fought in World War II. Some of them liberated the camps. Like, so who was this made for? But it still feels very over the top in camp, and that is such a very ahead of its time approach to such distasteful subject matter that it really does become like, well, I just can't take this seriously.
Yeah.
It's not like the Italian films, like Sallow, or like Beast and Heat and the stuff that came on later in the 70s, where that stuff is just, I don't know why that stuff was even made. It's that is a whole different class of distasteful to me.
No, but like I would not like Love Camp 7. Like, okay, so things like The Animal were pretty much, Cressy went up to Lee and was like, okay, I want you, the next movie we're gonna make, it's gonna have a guy looking at a woman through a telescope. Go. And then Lee would come up with the actual story and things like that. Love Camp 7 is the one that feels like Bob might have also been at the typewriter a little bit more. Or like, it seems like a little bit less of a, I have an initial idea I want you to do. Yeah. Because a lot of them was Bob being like, hey, for merchandising wise, I want this to be the concept, but you can have free reign. Because I trust you and things like that. But Love Camp 7 seems a bit more of Bob having a lot more fun with it. I mean, right down to going out to lunch in the suit.
Yeah,
when they were filming it too. And like Bob was having such a good time, you could tell.
Maybe a little bit too good.
He's having an absolute party. Yeah. He's milking the hell of it. And then, because that came after Hotspur, and they immediately go back to seriousness with the Scavengers, which has Lee all over it and not Bob.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Well, yeah, Frost has always begged off of the Love Camp 7 thing. He's like, listen, that was more of Cressy's picture than mine. And I think you definitely get that impression. Yes, exactly. You feel like he wrote it so that he could actually play that role. I think he just wrote it to try to give himself more on-screen stuff to do. It feels like a total vanity project, which is crazy when you think about what it actually is. It's like, this is a vanity project where you're playing this incredibly over-the-top SS commander. Very crazy.
That's what I wrote in my review. I was like, Cressy probably wrote this just because he wanted to hold that riding crop and pretend to hit people with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, God, poor B, their secretary, who thought the Nazis were actually coming to when they were filming that. I love that story so much. The tanks came in and poor little B running frantic through the Freedmen through the Freedmen.
Where did they get those
Because
tanks?
the Nazis were coming.
Those little mini
Well, you can rent
tanks.
those.
Oh my God.
Well, there were places in Hollywood. There were places in Hollywood. They did.
Right.
Those obviously
Dirty
did cost
Dozen was
money.
done
Those
the year
did-
before, right? Like they had access to those things for sure.
Yeah,
Pulling it through
you
that
could definitely-
tiny little alleyway. It's so funny.
Oh, I know.
yeah.
I could practically like see Dan Sunny going, "Oh, they're gonna hit the building," as they're filming.
Don't hit my
Oh, no.
Cordova Street office.
Oh my God, Elmer's in there! No, not McCurdy.
I think a lot of these guys in exploitation, they started out with studios, so like they definitely had those connections. So John, like there were movies that were shot on like the Paramount lot or had pickups on the Paramount lot if they had to. I think they just pulled strings where they had to.
Or there was also just other houses, like Western Costume Co. that would have old defunct Hollywood stuff that they would get.
Right.
So there were other places around catering to independent productions as well, and things like that. Like the folks of Torture Me, Kiss Me were not about to get a tank in upstate New York.
No,
for theirs, but realistically,
don't remind me
you
of
could
that
in
piece of shit.
California.
Oh my God, terrible.
But you could in California, but you could for that one. And I don't know. As iffy as a film as it is, it did do a lot of money. It did do a lot for them on the marketplace.
Great. What,
that was the
Torture Me,
one where
Kiss
they
Me?
had a lot of issues. No, I'm talking about Love Camp 7.
Oh, Love Camp 7. Well, yeah, it was a major release.
Oh.
I can't believe the size of the press book for that, actually, in full color, too.
12 pages.
Yeah, they put a lot of money into
the
it.
Pickup. That in the pickup is when Bob was getting really lavish. In particular, I would kill to see photos of the Pussycat fronts for some of these premieres. I can only imagine how elaborate the fronts of the theaters were when he had decked them out for Hotspur.
Love is a 4-letter word. That press book was what, 4 pages you sent us?
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of info in it.
A lot of his press books don't. They're more like flashy visual and stuff. They don't have a lot of actual like plot and credits in them, or they'll have fake credits. Like Mondo Voyeurism.
Hotspur is pretty substantial.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
that had got 2 versions. I have the later re-release pressbook version that
I have
uses the National Review ads and comes with. Oh, okay. Mine was like a press kit where it comes with all these telegrams from theater owners saying, "Bob, the movie's making so much money." Oh yeah, okay, I've got that one.
I have the initial one that's like it's the size of the Love Camp 7 one, and it has a lot in it. Like they're treating it like a prestige picture, Hotspur.
Yeah, but no, a lot of the other Olympic ones weren't that. Like I'm pulling up the one for Secret Society. It was very much like a visual spectacle on the inside than actual information, like an actual plot synopsis of them and things. You cannot find plot info. Here's another one. Here's The Bite. It's mostly just almost all his press books have no actual production information on them. Yeah. And even the ones like Mondo Voyeurism are like the first unit camera people were this, the second unit people, the people who went to Zimbabwe to film for us, or something like that. All of them are ludicrous. All of the press books are ludicrous. The hentai press book has a quote from a Cresse alias saying how good the film is, Felix Lomax.
Oh,
that's funny. Well, let me read from the Love is a 4-letter word press book, like to get a feeling for like how they're marketing this. So it's Love is a 4-letter word is an unusual combination of the compelling, realistic drama found in high art productions, quotes, and the shocking, open-minded approach used in current exploitation films. But let there be no mistake, this motion picture is not merely an exploitation film. It is an important and provocative examination of a young man's preoccupation with sex. So yeah, that kind of gives you a feel for what Bob is marketing here. And I mean, the press book also is really heavy on Diane Michaels. Like, this is the new star. She's going to be a big deal. This is her first big picture. But that didn't.
And she's fine. Like, she's not Lucky Win. I think Lucky Win steals the show. Yeah, I mean,
he tried to do that a few times. He did that with one of the French films too, being like, "I'm introducing Christine so and so of The Slave, and she's gonna be a big." He said that at least like 3 or 4 times. That's a device he's brought up as again. His devices are. We've sucked so much dick so that you could be able to see this legally in the U.S.
What do you
have
mean?
a million different stars. No, I have consumed so many things being like, we fought so hard so that you guys can see this movie. We went through so many legal battles so you, the paying Pussycat audience, would have the right to see this motion picture. I can't begin to tell you,
but it's not true.
I have gray hair now because I am making sure you guys can see sex.
Right.
And then one of his other devices is
like, you just went to Cannes and bought it. What are you talking about? Like,
exactly.
What are you talking about? There are film markets where you buy this shit. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Oh my god,
it's crazy.
There's this whole ludicrous thing for Night of Lust, and again, him doing his lugubrious wording. Half the ads for that was
isn't that Benazarov?
And half the ads in that are not erotique. The poor dirty men just want a sex film, Bob. Like, don't try and make them read French in the LA Times. Like, give them a break. Give them a break. They have a lot of other things to do. So it's either we fought so hard so you can see this movie.
Lies.
This movie has an up and coming star, or this is the first of something.
Lies.
We are now the biggest. We're
listing all the lies.
So I see that so much. Yeah, those are the top three ploys that he used in a lot of his campaigns.
Well, I mean, there's no downside to hyping a new actress. Yeah. It's like, if she doesn't
Friedman,
become a star,
but Friedman put it best. Like, he's like, there weren't that many people trying to make stars of these women, because then they would have to pay them more. So you don't want to hype up specifically a star, because then if it hits, then she's going to charge more. I feel like Marsha Jordan's an exception to that. I don't think she ever raised her rate. At least I think she might have raised it a bit. I need to reread that interview with her in Cinema, which is really terrific. But she was like in the softcore days, it was like her, Lorna Maitland, Erica Gavin. I mean, but those are all very different types of actresses, and also very different producers.
And Friedman, the only one really that was ever being attempted to was Stacey Walker with Friedman, but we missed that.
Oh, also we tried to push Sherry Mann, which is like, why are you trying to make Sherry Mann a thing? Like, she's terrible and boring.
Sherry Mann was the blonde one,
she was
right?
the secretary. She was the
yes, exactly. She was the secretary.
She was the secretary, and I was like, "You're working with D. Lockwood. You need to make D. Lockwood the star. Like, D. Lockwood needs the promotion, and she didn't get it. Or Vincent Wallace, promote a redhead.
Actually, naturally had so much charisma and stuff.
Yeah,
she's
fantastic. And then you have Sherry Mann, who was like watching paint dry. Yeah, like God love her, because she's around. She comments on IMDb and stuff sometimes, but it's just like, girl. Thank you for your service, but no thank you. Right.
Yeah, absolutely not. Sherry, you were
I don't
just
love
around.
all these actresses equally. Sorry about it.
Hey, they did their due diligence at the very least. We'll give them that.
Yes. Like I said, thank you for your service. It took a lot to take off your clothes in front of a camera at this time when it was considered really not a cool thing to do. So thank you for that. But let's move on. Let's talk about some major people that should have been bigger stars, Sorry, you shouldn't have been a big star.
Well, what brought that on?
Nothing, I just love you.
You only love me for my meatloaf. Better watch it, or we'll be right back where we were last week.
Oh, come on. What's a little love between friends?
No, Jerry, I didn't want this to happen.
But don't worry, nothing's going to happen. You taste great.
Please don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about Harvey. I'd like to know a little bit more about Harvey Shain. I told Casey that we're going to lean on you for some information about him.
Like I said, I've had a crush on him for a long time, because there aren't that many attractive guys in these movies. So for someone like me who's openly gay, it's kind of like, I stand the women for various different reasons, but the men, it's kind of like slim pickings for gay men or women going to these movies. It's like him, maybe Steve Vincent, Sebastian Gregory, if you squint. It's like it's like Sebastian Gregory, maybe
Tony Vorno
mood. Yeah, Tony Vorno.
Sebastian Gregory is a great older gentleman. Sebastian Gregory is a great old elder gentleman kind of guy.
And Steve Vincent was like an opera singer, so he had a really good voice, and he was nice and hairy. But Foreman Shain was like the right age to be appearing in these movies. He was like the age of the actresses that he worked with. I found a newspaper article from 1956 in Miami that he was an actor there there before he moved to California to be an actor. Much younger.
Did you say 56?
Yeah. So like as a teenager, like he was involved
like 15.
Yeah, so he was he was acting in theater in Miami as a teenager, so he'd been acting for a long time before he went out to California. I think he's mostly known for his collaborations with Steve Apostoloff or A.C. Stephen well into the 70s, like when he wasn't really using regular people anymore. Like he was in Hot Ice, which is hot garbage, more like it, and he was the casting director of that. So like he was very involved with the Apostoloff world. And he's actually interviewed in the Dad Makes Dirty Movies documentary about Apostoloff, which is great to see him. He still looks great. He's like a silver daddy in Van Nuys, California.
Is he bearded?
Now. Yes.
Does he have a beard or not? Okay.
Yeah.
Because, it's interesting that these early films, he's total babyface. But then once we get into the 70s, he grows that beard. And he kind of plays different roles, too. He's no longer like this fresh-faced college kid.
Yeah, he adds some beef. He put on some weight. And he plays also like if you watch him in like Beach Bunnies, he's heavier. But I always am like he still did nudity into the 70s because you can't not do nudity in the 70s. Yeah. But I remember I was rewatching Headmistress, and he's like one of the only men in that cast who does nudity, and I was like, thank you, God, like take your friggin' boxers off. It's 1968. Like, come on now.
Well, thank God he didn't grow a beard for a while, because who else would they have for a go-to strapping young lad?
Right,
because that's his go-to like stock character in all these. No, he couldn't do Lady Godiva Rides. He's also strapping young lad in that one. Pretty much, he's pretty much the same guy. What I love also about the 4-letter word Pressbook is that it introduces him as well. Instead of the lady as well, it goes starring Foreman Shain. This young actor turns in a professional performance beyond any that we have had the pleasure of presenting.
Right.
I mean, there wasn't a lot of acting in the other ones, but okay.
I'll give him that.
I think he is good
in this, considering that he has a character that is underwritten and has very little to do. His expressions are great.
He has to do a lot with his face in this.
Yeah, he has to be very expressive. But like compare this to something like Secret Sex Lives of Romeo and Juliet, where he plays Romeo. And actually, a lot of his roles are comic. Like, he's more of a comic actor. So you really don't see him in dramas in sexploitation. Like even all the E.C. Stevens stuff, all of that is comedy, because Apostoloff was not one really for drama. He wanted to have fun, and his movies have that sense of fun. So I think it makes sense that he would continue to call this guy for like a decade. Like, I'm shooting this movie and I have a part for you. It requires nudity, and he would do it just because he wanted to work with Apostoloff again.
He fits way better into the Apostoloff world than the Frost world.
I think
Absolutely.
so. He's not like a John Alderman is way more of a Frost person, because there's something very cold and like severe about Alderman. Yeah, Harvey or Foreman Shain is very like, he's babyface. He's somebody that you don't see him having inner turmoil. He does it well when he's asked to, but like you see him as somebody who would be like going out and like picking up girls and having a good time and things like that, because he is youthful. John Alderman always seemed like an old man and everything to me.
He was like perpetually like 38.
Pretty much. I don't know if this always on the cusp of 40 and everything.
Yeah.
Right. I don't remember when Shain was born. I have his birthday written down somewhere because I have his contact. I've never spoken to him. I need to call him at some point, but
yeah, no. Cresse was at school around the same time. He was in school around the late 50s. Okay. And acting around Miami in the mid to late 50s too, as well. A couple articles of performances with him, like mentioned in them, have surfaced.
Interesting. Okay.
Of him doing like bit parts and things in and outside of school.
He went back to Florida and died there, didn't he?
He did, because he took over some property that was left to him. He took over, I think, a rooming house that his grandmother had left to him. Okay. So he spent out the rest of his time there in Florida, sometime after the 70s, unfortunately as a recluse. It was a very sad end to Bob's long and storied career. Which sucks, because according to him,
we want to talk about this ending this weird tragedy of Bob Cresse.
Yeah,
we've heard the story from Friedman that would tell this. He told the story of the holdup that Bob intervened in, and I've always thought it was weird. Something seemed off about it. What do you guys think?
I don't know, because what's great is that Vraney interviewed Bob,
Yeah, I have that
Bob
too.
has spoken out. Bob, yes, hey, cult movies. Bob has spoken out. So the shooting did happen, but I have heard it in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Some which seems slightly more ludicrous than how else it goes.
All right. So how does Bob tell it in that?
Actually, here you go. I'm fine here.
Okay.
This is sad. Okay, Brainy was just talking to him about Scavengers, which was near the end. That was the end. I was planning to retire after that one. I'd had $1 million in cash in a Swiss bank. It was legal. I declared on my income tax. Blah blah blah. So he had just planned to retire and sell all the films, give all the equipment to Lee as a gift, because since then they'd had all their own equipment, moviolas, things like that. So he was gonna sell off his stuff, pretty much sell off his films, retire Switzerland with all the money, give his stuff as a parting gift to Lee. Continuing on, I got into an altercation, and I won't go into too much detail about it. I tried to save a girl who was getting beat up on Hollywood Boulevard. I wound up getting shot pretty badly. I had no health insurance. I was hit in the stomach for starters. They also shot and killed my dog, which hurt a lot. I'd rather have had them shoot me one more time than to shoot my dog. I spent 5 months in the hospital, with the doctors constantly telling me I was going to die each night. Every day they tell me I was doing badly and probably wouldn't make it, and every day I tell them to quit telling me that. Anyway, I spent close to 7 months in the hospital that way. My accountant begged me to go bankrupt and not pay the hospital bill, because he said all my money was all in Switzerland. I could just go bankrupt. It was a county hospital. They're used to taking losses. But I ended up paying, and it cost me about $750,000, which pretty much, well, fucked up my retirement. What could have been a pretty good deal turned out to be a kind of a poverty-stricken lifestyle. Laughs. I shouldn't say that. I live a pretty comfortable life, but that turned my voluntary retirement into an enforced permanent retirement. The closest story was that he was at an adult bookstore with his dog, or was around that area at the time, and saw two cops assaulting this woman on the ground. And they were plainclothesmen, so it just looks like there's two men assaulting this one random lady on the sidewalk, pretty much.
Yeah.
And Bob, in his craziness, of course, carried a gun.
Yeah.
According to someone, he had a whole closet in the Olympic International offices full of guns and grenades.
It was like an intimidation tactic.
Yeah.
Novak did the same thing. They both did the same thing.
Oh, was that Novak's purpose too? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Novak collected guns as an intimidation tactic too. Yeah, and it's so crazy. They both hated each other, but they did so many of the same. They did so many of the same things, and they hated each other. It was crazy.
That's probably why they were too similar. And so Bob always carried a gun on him, and so he came out, pulled out the gun, and said, "Stop what you're doing! I'm making a citizen's arrest. I'm calling the police." One of the men goes to him and he goes, "We are the police," and shoots him.
Yeah.
And then shoots the dog, which was yipping at them. So they shot the dog dead, too, unfortunately. And the Cresse was not the same after that at all. Cresse was already realistically not remotely stable. Cresse was already a very interesting character, as it was.
Yeah.
And
he got more paranoid after that. Yeah. That's what I heard,
more paranoid. He wouldn't.
Right.
Oh God, yeah. He was so scared to leave. He'd have cars always constantly picking him up in and out of the Olympic offices. He would have to park in a car garage that had to close just in case and things like that. He was a shell of himself afterwards, unfortunately. So yeah, and you could tell things were very uninspired afterwards with some of the films and things. I mean, how Love Slaves, the whole campaign for Love Slaves is pretty much all the ad mats for the slave just recycled and things.
Really?
Everything he does with the Republic Republic had a bit of like life to it, but then with some of the other things, it's very uninspired, very not into it anymore.
Yeah, such a strange story. Yeah.
So, which also I would have hoped that he was going to continue, but no. Apparently, yeah, he said he was going to retire. And there is an ad. There is an ad around in the back pages of Box Office or Variety, Olympic International Films for sale. In like the back pages around 69, 70.
I always wonder though with that story, it's like why would he not try to sue the police department? There's no mention of that. Like,
good luck being able to like actually win that case.
Yeah. At that time.
That's the thing. See, they were the LAPD was wild back then. In particular, back then, I've never heard good things about the LAPD from back then. And also, they would have said they would have also great self-defense clause. They were arresting a prostitute. Yeah, I didn't realize that they were making an arrest on a prostitute. So, despite the fact they were assaulting her, Cresse pulled a gun on a cop, and the cop technically was intimidated and shot. That wouldn't have unfortunately been worth it in legal fees and all that. I don't think it would have wound up leading anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, strange.
Yeah,
well,
there would have not been a case. It was his word against theirs.
Well, Cresse carrying a gun kind of came back to bite him there,
which sucks.
I mean, I'm
There's
not putting
really
the blame on
funny...
him, but.
He did pull out that gun in a few interesting
frequently, yes.
points.
He was a little mobster. Yeah. That's what Friedman always said. Like, oh yeah, there's Bob. There was
a gun in his situation with Novak, where he was supposed to start. He was supposed to be part of like Box Office International when it started. Novak tells that really good story on the Kiss Me Quick commentary, where he's like, Cresse was supposed to be involved, but he wanted something happened where he threatened Novak with a gun, and it didn't work out for him. And this must have been after he appeared in Love Is a Four-Letter Word, because he's in Love Is a Four-Letter Word.
Oh yeah,
it did also come to good use. There's this great story. Cresse apparently did this. This was an infamous one around the time. He pulled a gun on Shain Sales's business partner.
Yes, that story's in that interview,
which is a great tale. So for the listener, Shain Sales,
what a con artist,
who was notorious for. Wasn't he the one who was like, "Leave me your movie for the weekend. I'll take a look at see if I like it."
He duplicated.
And during the process of the weekend, he duped your film, and he gave you back the duped print.
Yep.
And kept the actual print he sent. He'd say, "Oh no," so I'm going to send it back, and it was a dupe print. So Bob got screwed over by Shain Sales, and so he goes up to the office with his goons, and Shain's business partner is not giving him the money. So Cresse pulls out his gun, pulls the partner's head back by the hair, and shoves it down his throat. He got paid, and then later on in the day, Shain's business manager calls the police. The police go to the Olympic offices, and by that point, Cresse reaches into his desk and pulls out a toy cap gun, and goes, "This is what I used. It was just a cap gun." And they were like, "You still can't do that."
Yeah.
Look, I promise not to hurt you. I'll be gentle.
That's not it.
Okay, Sheila, just forget it. Forget everything.
Well, so we talked about Harvey. You guys, is there anything more to say about Diane Michaels? I mean, she was in 2 movies that we know of.
And got an interview that's probably not real.
I was going to say, I'll take that with a grain of salt. It's a publicity interview, so I don't know.
And it doesn't sound like a big. It just doesn't sound like some of the things that are said, saying a beginner actress would say. Right.
Pretty much. Do you think that the overarching details were, maybe like Portland, Oregon native? Maybe that's real.
Maybe
moved to Southern California.
Yeah, possibly, because obviously she was sat down. Like, there's headshots of her. Like, it seems like what's his face, Marv Lincoln, at least went to her place, took a couple photos. Yeah, at the very least, it did something there, because Marv has said that he did interview some of these ladies, but he would bullshit a lot. a lot of the stuff for these magazines. So the only ones I kind of take with a bit more of a grain of salt is when he does interview people like Frost or Russ Meyer, because he did. Some of the issues do have interviews like with them in the middle of their career.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to like try to fake that with them, like make up bullshit.
No, and they actually have interesting things to say. Like the Wildest Films interview with Russ Meyer is really neat because it was just before Faster Pussycat came out, so he was still planning to do more noir films afterwards. Because Faster Pussycat had not tanked yet. So in the Wildest Films, he's like, I think I'm going to do like this kind of movie next because these are doing really well and stuff. And then Faster Pussycat tanks, and he has to completely change his trajectory. He was going to do more noir films, which I'm a little sad he didn't. That was going to keep going on. Yes, yeah, he was going to keep on doing that. But nope. Then Faster Pussycat came out, and then also that was the only interview with Lee Frost for the longest time was the Wildest Films interview of his from 1966, which has some pretty good stuff, but it was also 1966, so it was also a lot missing as well.
Yeah, that Diane interview was like, yeah, I worked as a model and topless Watusi dancer. I'm like, that just seems made up. Yeah, it's like how many girls did that? It's like
it's possible. I mean, topless Watusi girls are like a lot of the girls in Kiss Me Quick. Like they did a Watusi short with the girls from Kiss Me Quick, so I feel like it's a thing. But it also, keep in mind that the movie was released 2 years later after production, which also makes me question Help Wanted Female. How are two actresses in this movie made in 1964 still available in 1968? I think it's very unusual. Yeah, there's a story there, and I want to know what it is.
I know. I hope it's just not just the same agency. I hope they were friends. I like to think they were friends.
That makes more sense than an agency keeping these women for 4 years and then never doing anything else. I mean, that's crazy.
Or say else, you know, like someone else, like like someone like Hal Gathue or something like that. Like there were little agencies for these gals.
Yeah, I'm trying to know. So I'm trying to remember who was mostly a softcore. Because Hal Gathue didn't come around until later.
Stuff. Yeah.
So I don't know who the top agency was at that time. I'd love to know more about that. That's a whole area of research that isn't really discussed.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised as well. Some of these, if they were also just same agency who had mostly been doing nude modeling. Hey, we got some movie producers too, as well.
Yeah. Well, I know Pete Harold was really good. Was been very involved with casting, but that's because he went to find girls.
I was about to say that's how. I think that's pretty much according to Bob. That's how Bob and Lee even got together the first times. That Lee was casting for Surftide 77.
Right.
And Bob had already done Once Upon a Night. And so he had a roll of casting footage. And that's how they got together initially, was that Lee was using Cresse to help cast Surftide 77 with some of the connections he had already made with Once Upon a Night.
Right.
And then Cresse read the script and was like, can I play Granny Good?
Frost is
that's how that came about.
And Frost, he wasn't really interviewed again until Chris Poggiali did an interview with him, and that was for Shock Cinema. And he really downplays his friendship and relationship with Lee Frost in that interview, where he's kind of like, yeah, you hear a lot of stories about Lee. I don't know what Lee did. I wasn't involved. Lee did his own thing. He made it sound like it was purely business. They didn't socialize, all of that stuff, which is interesting because Cresse's thing is like, well, I'm still in touch with Lee Frost, whatever. Frost makes it sound like they parted ways. He left Olympic International to go to AIP with Wes Bishop, and then he didn't look back. So the idea that Cresse was going to leave him the Olympic International films, I think he was moving up. I don't think he would have been interested in it.
No,
at least from my perspective, from Frost, from basically what Frost has said. But that's just my perspective.
I get the sense that they had a great business relationship and things like that. I just get the sense that Lee maybe did not like Bob, but Bob was not about to be someone that Lee was about to go out with on his nights. No. But Lee also has his own life outside of this. He had a wife and things like that. Like, he was kind of divorced as well from the business too. So they had a great working relationship. They had a fantastic working relationship. But outside of like Bob keeping Lee busy, and that's what Lee was always wanting to do, is keep busy and constantly make stuff. Like, Bob was a great outlet to keep Lee busy and to keep Lee having a level of independence as well, too, because he could really do a lot of things. But Bob wasn't always his number one favorite. Like, they did butt heads quite a bit, like throughout the Olympic time. Like, why, Bob? Why are the trailers so long? Like, just so you know, I don't think Bob was, of course, like Lee's absolute favorite person in the world.
He describes Wes Bishop as more of his, he was much more of a collaborator with Wes Bishop over Lee Frost, or over Cresse. Which makes sense, because the two of them went together into many other films together with many other studios. So, yeah.
Yeah, Cresse was a great outlet, but Cresse was also, like, wanting to do things that, like, Lee felt... I always got the sense that, like, Lee was always, again, a bit above some of the things that he was having to do.
Yeah, but Cresse was never going to be, like... He was never going to make, like, a big mainstream film with Cresse. No. You know, as you saw Frost and Bishop... They were aiming for some serious mainstream like success. Right. You could see that with their films.
Like they did work. Yeah, it was I did think it was an absolutely incredible relationship throughout. Olympic would not be the same without Lee at all. For the most part, like even if like Bob had gone with someone else, it was just doing all this pickups and things. Because Lee also he did the dubbing for all those films.
Yeah,
he was a fantastic
he did everything,
dubber.
All the text shit. He edited everything.
He did a lot of the cutting. Yeah. He did. So I don't know if we should blame him for making some of the imports as incoherent as they are. Or if Bob was like, Lee, get this down to 60 minutes so I could have a 2-hour program with 2 of these. Because a lot of the imports are cut down to 1 hour. Yeah, they play out like Bob, like the ones that they produced normally seemed like 70 minutes, and then they normally came out with a short film. The imports normally seemingly came out on double bill with each other, which are each an hour in length normally, so they made for a good 2-hour program. Some of them were absolutely like massacre of pleasure. Try and figure out what's going on in that film.
That's a mess.
Touch of Leather. Try and figure out what's going on in Touch of Leather. Good luck.
Terrible.
Some of them fared better. Like The Bite is absolutely fantastic. Hentai seems like it was okay, and stuff like that. But Lee literally did everything. The only other person I can think of, and I wish we knew his name, is they had a really great campaign designer who was the one who came up with a lot of the really good campaigns, like The Slave and Love Robots and things like that. They had another guy working for them who I wish we knew, because he was the one who really made the Olympic campaigns for them. I wish, and his name has unfortunately been lost to time as well, which really sucks. Some young art student, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, Lee was the one who was giving Bob the quality product. Like some of the imports are really good. Like I love things like The Slave, once again, The Bite, the Max Pecas films are normally pretty good for the most part, but for the domestic product, Lee's are pretty much the best. Again, even if it's not him firing on all cylinders.
Come on, baby. Melee's nice and ready. Melee's going to take good care of our boy.
Is there any evidence of how well this movie did? Love is a 4-letter word, you know, based on showings or anything. Like we said, it took a couple years to come out, so I wonder how well it did, if it was kind of passé by then or what.
I think it came out at the right time, actually.
Yeah, I have to say is I think it did business. Like I don't think it was incredible. It played in all the requisite houses for the like allotted 2 weeks here. Right. It doesn't look like it was pulled at all in one of its runs. It had its regular, first opening for 2 weeks at the Pussycat, then was bicycled around. By this point as well, Bob had also his distribution contacts like all well and done. He wasn't, driving around with the Prince in his Volvo, like back in the back in the early days. He had a good little network. He had good relations with everyone. So by this point, anything Cresse was putting out, unless he had invested $100,000 in it, he was going to get some sort of return.
Yeah.
No matter what. So I don't think this was I've never heard this film as being quoted as being one of their really spectacular money makers. Like, say, Mondo Voyeurism was huge for them. Mondo Voyeurism was a big one. Animal was okay. Hotspur was big. Love Camp 7 was very big. Love is Before, I just think it did business. Like, it just wasn't good nor bad. It was just another good piece of product.
I wanted to ask you guys about the rights issues with this. It's a very, seems like it's a very underseen film. It's hard, it's not out on Blu-ray for sure. We know that.
Right.
I mean, there are some weird DVDs floating around. What's up with the Cinema Epic DVD? It seems like they don't even have the rights to it.
Well, Sam Sherman found this film somehow. It's Independent International is Sam Sherman, so he got a print and licensed it. It's an orphan film. It is protected by copyright, but that company doesn't exist anymore, so people can do with it what they want.
Okay.
What seems like happened, I don't think, Independent International, the company that's listed on that is, I do not think it is Sam Sherman's Independent International. I've done some research because
really,
I was also trying to see
he's done this in the past.
Oh, has he?
He's got prints of shit that he just says, "Yeah, I have this." Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I thought it might have come from there was the manager of a repertoire theater / print collector out in Portland who had some sort of thing of his as well called Independent International. This whole thing, pretty much, the Cinema Epoch releases feel like someone found a palette of prints somewhere and decided to do something with this palette of Olympic prints. Because it's this Grindhouse line that they did, which is almost all Olympic titles, and then one print that apparently came from Harry Novak's Slave Widow, Naked Pursuit, which one of those ones?
Those two are both Novak. Yeah, they put both of those
came
out.
from. I heard those prints came from Novak.
Yeah, they credit Box Office International on there on both of those releases, I believe, because I have the DVDs of both of those.
And then this Independent International company then released 3 more Cresse titles independently via MOD, very very briefly. As well. Those were Night of Lust, Babes in the Woods, and Once Upon a Night as well. I don't know. It could be Sam. I think I've tracked it down to the manager of a repertoire theater in Portland who had prints. And who
I'm still going with Sam Sherman.
For some odd reason got involved in this. Possibly.
This smacks of Sam Sherman. But he's done this in the past.
Would he put new titles on it like he did here?
He would. He's misrepresented ownership of titles all the time. Yeah, he's one of the original 40 Thieves. That does not shock me whatsoever. That's like Novak claiming ownership of the Japanese movies. Where he claimed that he had all the Barry Mahon titles that he distributed. He had a print, and he may have been the regional distributor. He doesn't own it.
Yes.
He has the theatrical rights briefly for a regional release. It's the same with the Japanese movies. He bought them for U.S. theatrical only. He doesn't own them. So the rights situation for these is always, I find it really fascinating, and I research it all the time. Because copyright is people make copyright sound more complicated than it is. It's not that complicated. Honestly, it doesn't have to be registered at the Copyright Office to be protected by copyright. If it has a proper notice in the credits and it was released to the public, it's protected by copyright. And the question is the claimant still around? If the company dissolved, are the people who owned the company still around? They would have some claim to it. Case in point, Seeds, with a copyright to the Bazzinis, who are both still around. They would have a claim to that. They would have a claim to Seeds of Sin because the copyright notice is on the print. So, yeah, it's one of those things. There's a lot of titles in the Something Weird library. Love Something Weird, but if there's a notice in the credits... Is there a legal document somewhere?
Is there a legal document somewhere proving that? Because I thought you had to publish with notice before 1977, and then things that had been published with notice...
No.
Can you send that file? Send me some stuff, Casey.
I'll have to look through. Yeah, I mean, I took a copyright class at NYU and was taught all of this stuff, and I'm glad I paid a very expensive price for this education. That was one of the main things I took away from it, was that, stuff doesn't automatically just go into public domain if it's previous to a year. It's like, it depends on... Yeah, no, I've never heard that if it's before 77.
Because the laws changed like 3 different times.
I know.
In a
that's
short
the thing.
succession.
People are trying to make it more complicated than it is. Yeah.
So that's the that's the thing. So like for like briefly, it was like, oh, things post 1963 you don't have to renew anymore, and things are automatically protected. But things pre 1963 you have to renew. Okay, we've now amended this thing where suddenly you no longer need to renew, but everything I read did not state anything about films that had never been registered. So what happens with the unregistered films with the 1977 copyright change?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is still protected.
Well.
It's just, it's one of the, I mean, that's one of the big takeaways from that wonderful education I got. Was that, yeah, it's pretty cut and dry. If you published it with a copyright notice, like all the changes in copyright law are typically to make sure that the protection lasts way longer than it needs to. Like it's like the life of the author plus 75 years, which is insane, which means that something made in the 60s or the 70s, whenever, wouldn't be public domain until like 2020 something, which is crazy. It's, that's a whole nother thing, but
and then unless it was the company, then the company goes defunct, and then the company defunct plus 70 years.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So I don't know if it's copyright Chancellor Films. Chancellor Films went out in 70-something, so I don't know.
That's why we went to Shelley Wilson's daughter for a few things that well, Chancellor wasn't her, but Shelley Films, we went to Shelley Wilson's daughter to see if they had anything, and they didn't have anything. Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things. Basically, you have to trace it. You have to do like that backwards tracing at some point. Otherwise, it'll stay orphaned. And that's kind of like Love is a 4-letter word would technically be orphaned because Producers Inc. or whatever would have been probably Cresse and Frost, and they're both dead. Like, yeah, I think that the search probably ends there.
We, the members of this sorority, do hereby, and under penalty of expulsion, declare that the happenings in this secret initiation shall never be told to anyone outside of these walls. Bring in the initiates.
Before we go, let's say one good thing about Love is a 4-letter word. So
I mean, that doesn't sound like a challenge for either of you. You have a lot of positive things to say about this one.
Wait, are we going to talk about Cresse's voyeurism fetish yet, though? We haven't brought up his penchant for voyeurism.
I mean, it was. I feel like it's a Frost thing. I feel like it's not necessarily a Cresse thing. I feel like it's a Frost thing too.
Everything in that era was voyeurism, don't you think?
Pretty much.
I mean, that was just permeating the 60s.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Alex, look at all these paperback novels. It's like every paperback novel from that time was about voyeurism and like.
Yeah.
But how many producers do you guys know had two-way mirror?
Yeah, like probably just him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. How many other producers had a two-way mirror? Like, had a two-way mirror in his house?
I don't know. That we know of? Yeah. Well, they have that two-way mirror in Mondo
Bizarro, which is a fantastic thing. Such a fantastic title sequence. One thing I gotta give this film, it has a great title sequence.
That great opening, yeah.
It has a fantastic title sequence.
Yeah, the blinds.
Yes, I do. I do agree with that. It does. It does have a good title sequence.
It opens on that slit of his eyes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a fantastic way to open this film. Once again, did not need to be that elaborate, but God, I'm so happy that they did.
Actually, I have an amazing story about Lee Frost to tell you. So I used to be really good friends with the Code Red guys, Walt and Bill Olson. Completely insane. Rest in peace, both of them. Yeah, rest in peace, both of them. They were putting out Black Gestapo, and they wanted to get Lee Frost for a commentary. This was like back in the I think it was DVD days. I think it was like 2000. Well, I know it when it was because they reached out. They found Lee Frost's phone number, or I found it for them, and they called him. They got his wife. And his wife was like, well, Lee's not available right now. Or no, Bob, because his real name was Robert. She's like, Bob's not available right now. Can I take a message? So they left a message. So we're putting up Black Gestapo. We'd love to do a commentary with him. We'll he was in Florida at the time. I don't remember now. But then they saw reports that he had died. And he had died like 4 days before they'd called the widow. And she had been like, oh, he's not here right now. Instead of just telling them, unfortunately, he passed away a couple days ago. Oh. Yeah. And then they called her back to express their condolences. And they were like, we're really sorry. We called a couple days ago," and she was like, "Oh, right, yeah." Yeah, and it was very awkward and weird, but yeah, like they just missed him because they were trying to get him for like his only audio commentary for Black Gestapo. Because yeah, and he had literally just died.
This weekend should get your mind off your problems. You might take in a few movies.